I want to welcome everyone to another Silicon Slopes Town Hall. This time we're talking all about the Payroll Protection Program, round two. And I could think of no one better or more qualified within our community or a bigger supporter of our community than Zions Bank. And we have a whole team of folks from Zions Bank here to go into the weeds for our community and for entrepreneurs and small businesses across the state of Utah on what this second round of the Payroll Protection Program means, how to get it, and everything in between. If you have any questions, please tweet them at us, send it to us, anything, and we'll ask them at the end of this program. And to start this thing off, I was on a call last week with Scott Anderson, who everyone knows, one of the most beloved figures in the entire state of Utah. And I said, how can we work together, Scott? Or how can we help here? And he said, let's get the people and entrepreneurs and small businesses more information on the payroll protection program that's coming out, and which has led to this. And so, Scott, I want to thank you for your leadership and everything you've done here in this community for many, many years, but in particular during this pandemic, which has been so devastating for so many. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Scott, to introduce your team and talk about Zions Bank. And so the floor is yours, my friend.
Good. Well, thanks, Clint. And on behalf of Zions Bank, let me say how excited we are to be here with you all. And I hope you find this town hall meeting beneficial. As you know, we're in the midst, probably 2 weeks into the new PPP, Payroll Protection Plan 2.0 program, and it will extend through March 31st. And it's a terrific program that if you meet the criteria, it is basically free cash from the government to help you keep operating and keep your people on payroll. And so in talking with Clint, we thought it would be a great idea to bring on Rob Bruff, our Chief Marketing Officer, Tom Morgan, our Chief Retail Officer, Ryan Shaw, our SBA subject matter expert, and Shelley Johnson, our Chief Risk Officer, to talk about this program with you and let you know how it works, how you can apply, and encourage you that if you think this works for you, to have you apply. So with that, thanks, Clint, and I'll turn the time over to Tom.
Great, thank you very much, Scott, and good afternoon, everybody. Great to be with you. I want to just review some of the highlights of the SBA PPP 2.0 program, give you a few ideas of how it works this time. Ryan Shaw and I will share a little bit of time talking about the program itself and then some of the criteria and what's covered in the program. As you will know, the Congress approved a $900 billion relief bill. As a part of that $900 billion, $284 billion were carved out for a PPP 2.0. Last time in the 1.0, the maximum amount that a company could apply for was $10 million. This time around in 2.0, the maximum amount of a loan that can be applied for is $2 million. And so right off the bat, as this was being designed, we can see that the desire was to really get to the people that need the money, make sure that we're getting as far into the reaches as we can. In 2.0, there's a lot of flexibility this time for seasonal employers. So opportunities for them, even though they may not be in full speed all year round, they can use the months that they are up and running to qualify for 2.0. In this program, this time there's a simplification that has been brought on for businesses that apply for $150,000 or less. There'll be just a one-page sheet for forgiveness. In the 1.0 program, there's been a lot of forgiveness that's been applied for and granted. In our organization, we're over $500 million already that's been forgiven. In 2.0, like in 1.0, the calculation to decide how much you can apply for has to do with your average monthly payroll. And in 1.0, the calculation was 2.5 times your monthly average payroll. It's the same this time around with one exception. There's been a special carve out in 2.0 for food services and food related companies. And because they've been hit so hard, as we all know, the calculation for them is 3.5%. So they simply would take their monthly average payroll, multiply it by 3.5%, and that'd be the amount of loan they would be eligible to apply for. This time around in 1.0, the government has opened up a portal for 501c6 organizations. That's new. That's new to this. And they also opened up, as of the 25th of January, they opened up an opportunity for individuals who had applied in 1.0 to expand their application in 1.0 for additional funds. That application is out there and ready. One of the things that a lot of our industry has done in the very, very beginning of 1.0, most everything was done via paper application and a lot of a lot of real manual work. Our bank in particular and others like us created a digital application. And this time around at Zions Bank, that digital application is not only the origination facility, but it is also the fulfillment facility, meaning the application that you fill out for 2.0 is also the closing documents. So we don't have to go through another loan closing after everything's been approved. If your loan has been approved, then the application that you filled out and that document that you submitted with your signature is also the closing documentation for the loan. I think there's a lot of cool things that are happening in 2.0. We've learned a lot, and the government has learned a lot. As Scott indicated, 2.0 will be open until the 31st of March. There were a lot of people that applied initially, as we would have expected, same way in the first round. But as was reported in a meeting we were in earlier today, only about $75 billion of the $284 billion has been claimed through approved applications through the SBA. So there's money that's still available. There's an easy process that's available. And I'm going to turn it to Ryan now to talk about some of the things that are covered in 2.0. Some of them are the same as before, and then there's some additions. Take it away, Ryan.
Thanks, Tom. So this round, like round one, is to ensure that employees can remain on payroll and getting paid. So for the most part, this is still the payroll protection program. So we have to protect payroll. So those costs are covered along with rent or mortgage interest that is paid by your company. Utilities are still covered, but they expanded a few items this year to include operational expenses for the company as well. So supplier costs, the material that you buy, they also expanded it to PPE, worker protection. So if your company needs to expand the PPE that is offered for your workers, that's an allowed expense to be covered, along with property damage that may have been caused by one of the protests, riots in your area. Those as well can be covered. One caveat this year to remember, in order to qualify for a 2.0 loan, obviously you have to have applied for, been granted, and used all of the proceeds from the 1.0 loan, as well as you have to have experienced a 25% reduction in revenue from one quarter in 2020 from 2019. And so you gather your financial information and show that one quarter, you pick one quarter, 1, 2, 3, or 4, had a reduction of more than 25% from 2019 in order to be eligible. As Tom mentioned, the total dollar amount that can be approved was lowered from 10 million to 2 million this round. And excuse me, for an affiliation group, that total can only be $4 million between the total affiliates. And so they really are targeting the smaller companies who I believe need the money. The hotel, the travel, the restaurant industries are able to use and get a little bit higher calculation to help those employees. So there's other programs out there. The EIDL loan is back. The disaster loan is also available, along with the shuttered venue loan program for those concert event centers that have been shuttered for the pandemic. So the SBA, the Treasury, really, I believe, has done a great job in trying to get funds to those who have been hardest hit. We've seen the loan amounts be a little bit smaller this round than they were last time, which is just a testament to those smaller companies being able to access these funds. So it's a great program that has helped many and hopefully many more through this year. So I'll turn it to, I believe, Rob now.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that, Tom and Ryan. And I'm just going to take a few minutes and walk us through the application process at Zions Bank, and just to show you how you would go about that process of applying for a loan here at Zions Bank. One of the things that I want to point out, and I'm going to share my screen here, if I can make it work. Let's see. I'm not seeing my, give me just a minute. It worked previously, but let me just pull it up. But as I'm finding that, one of the things that I want to be sure is clear for everyone is that as we talk about PPP 2.0, there are really two pieces to it, as Tom and Ryan were explaining. For anyone who didn't apply for a PPP loan in round one, you can still apply for a loan in round two. And then there also then is the second draw loan, as it's called. So for those who received a PPP loan in round one, who can now apply for a second loan, and some of the qualifications are just a little bit different for each of those. So let me pull up my screen here and walk us through the application portal here at Zions Bank. So if you go to zionsbank.com/cares, this is where you will land, is this landing page that is our application portal for this round of the PPP program. If you click on the Apply Now button, in fact, actually, before I get there, next to the Apply Now button, you'll see this Review Required Documentation button. And I would encourage any who are looking to apply to click on that button to review the required documentation. There's a document then that comes up, and then based on your entity type, there's information about how to calculate your loan amount, as well as the documentation that will be required as part of the application process. I think Shelley will talk about this a little bit more in just a few minutes, but one of the things that really is important is that as you go through this application process, there will be certain documentation that will be required as you determine the loan amount for your loan. One of the things I think we're seeing that becomes a bit of a holdup is when the proper documentation isn't provided. As we then submit the application to the SBA, that can become a holdup. And so the more you can be familiar with the specific documentation that is going to be required for your specific entity type, that will really help speed up the application process. Now, one of the things I do want to mention, and again, Shelley may reiterate this as she talks, that the SBA has put in place some enhanced review with this round of the Paycheck Protection Program. one of the criticisms that the SBA received from the first round was, some question as to the strength of their review process and whether loans were getting to the right people. And so they are reviewing a little more closely, and it's just taking a little bit more time on their review side. So once an application is submitted, you can complete the Zions Bank application in probably 10 to 15 minutes. If you have all the right documentation to upload, it can happen really quickly. And then, we go through a review process of the documentation and the application, be sure that it's ready to go, and then we submit it to the SBA for their review and approval. So here is when you click on apply now, this is where you will be taken, is to this screen here. If it's your first time coming to the portal, you'll need to click on the sign up button in the lower right corner. That will then ask you to enter this information and create a login ID and password for this portal. One of the questions or things we often see is that those who are currently Zions Bank customers will come into the portal and they'll attempt to log on using their online banking credentials. This is a separate portal for this application, so you'll need to create a unique username and password for this portal. This is probably an opportunity for me to say also that there are some institutions, in fact, many institutions, who are only taking applications from existing customers. At Zions Bank, we are taking applications from any who wish to apply. You will be required, if you're not currently a Zions Bank customer, you will be required to open up a checking account in the name of the business for which you're applying for the PPP loan. And that is so that the proceeds from your PPP loan, once it's approved and funded, can be put into that account for you. So once you set up your login ID and password for the portal, you'll then go to this screen where this is actually the small business loan portal, and you click on proceed to PPP loans, and you'll be taken to this. And this is where you'll designate whether you are applying for a first draw PPP loan or a second draw. So again, first draw simply means you've not previously applied for a PPP loan and you are applying now under this new program for a first PPP loan. Second draw is if you already had a round one loan, this is your application for a second loan. Regardless of which one of those select, you'll be asked this question first just to make sure that you're in the right portal. But this gives you the chance to say, yes, I'm applying for either a first draw or second draw, and then it just takes you into the application. And there are a series then of questions in the application that are identified here really to be able to determine your qualification for a loan and the proper loan amount that you will calculate. And throughout the whole process, it will then prompt you for the documentation that is needed. And throughout this as well, you can always save your application and return back to the portal later if there's additional information that you need to secure or documentation that you need to gather. You can start it, save it, and come back to it at any time. But then once you get to the end of the application, again, it can be as simple as 10 to 15 minutes to get through the application process. Once you get to the end and you click submit, you'll receive a confirmation that says that your application has been submitted and that we will be reviewing it. And now it goes into that review process and we get started. So it really is that simple to get started with your application at Zions Bank. And again, it's at zionsbank.com/cares. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Shelly, who can give us some tips on how to best navigate this process and make it as smooth as possible. So Shelly?
Sure. Thanks, Rob, for that and walking everyone through just some of the eligibility questions, because that's a big one. And if you're not eligible right up front, the SBA has been very strict in declining clients, but we don't want that to deter you. Let me describe, round one was really about a borrower attestation, and it was a fast and furious round. Everyone was scrambling for funding. But, during round two, it's actually been, it's all about detail and completeness and quality control. And so we wanted to be able to just set some expectations for you so that you'll be prepared. And just understand that the timeline, again, is managing that expectation. But the SBA review has ranged anywhere from days to weeks. And that's, again, just running the course of trying to get some clarification from the SBA. But we recommend that you partner with the Zions banker. And in addition, talk to your CPA now and try to get all that documentation up front. And just setting expectations too. If for some reason you are audited by the SBA, we will be here to help you to walk through that, and just know that you will have us for any additional assistance there. Now, some additional things that we want you to be able to remember is that the SBA guidelines and the timeline is actually, again, the SBA's. It's not the bank. I know sometimes there's some blurriness there on what's happening, but these are SBA guidelines, and we try to expedite our processes as fast as we can for you. And it wouldn't be the SBA unless there were constant changes. I know during round one, we had constant changes throughout the day on IFRs and eligibility questions. I know that there's been some questions in regards to acquisitions, and what if there's an acquisition after the February 15th date of 2020? That's one of the questions that we're waiting for further clarification on. In order to make this easier for you, I'm going to say this one thing, and that is to follow your tax entity path. Do that with your application, the name, and it will be a much smoother process for you. So double check and triple check and go over that information. Now, a lot of times it comes up, and this may not apply directly to you because all of you have probably most likely an EIN and won't be using an SSN. But if you're a C Corp, S Corp, or partnership, you make sure that you're using that EIN number and using that consistently through your application. Now, some of the other things, and again, this is right from the SBA website, but this is one of the reviews that we do within the bank. And that is to gather, and you're going to want to write this down. You're going to want to make sure that you have your payroll tax reports. That could be a 941, a 944, or a W-3, or they accept third-party payroll reports. You want to make sure that you have your state quarterly wage unemployment forms, or again, a recognized third-party payroll report. You want to show a payroll report showing the documentation that you pay to your employees, and also which employees were paid in excess of $100,000. Now, one thing to remember with payroll reports is we have found, and this isn't posted anywhere with the SBA, but during their audit, they're actually capping employees at $35,000. Now, if you could hire someone in the tech industry for $35,000, I'm sure that would be that would be amazing. But that we know that's not the case. But just know in your calculation that they are capping employees at that amount at $35K. Also, we want to see that payroll report covered that time period of February 15th, 2020, or that you have a bank statement that covers that time period, just to show that the business was open during that time frame. And then also start to gather your SUTAs. Now, SUTAs, you might ask what that is, and that's a State Unemployment Tax Act form. And that's actually required for all entities except for a sole proprietorship. So that's one example of some entities and some of those requirements that the SBA is requiring. And what we can do is we can actually send out, well, after this call, we can send out some documentation for you that just from the SBA that shows you how to calculate revenue and some of those, again, eligibility requirements on that. Now, I wanted to share just some best practices and some things that we're seeing that some of our borrowers get hung up on. And some of that again is some of those eligibility requirements that Ryan and Rob and Tom all talked about. Also, we're seeing that if you applied for a round one loan and you're applying for a round two loan, if the name is different, the SBA is going to catch that. And so we want to make sure that that is consistent again through the process. Now, a Zions banker can help you do that correction, so don't worry about that. We're seeing that that's taking up to about a week to have those corrections done before it receives an SBA approval. And if you have a foreign entity, moving on to a different topic. So if you have a foreign entity owner, you want to make sure that that owner has applied for an SSN, and they'll have to go through, of course, the IRS for that. But if they process that application without that SSN, it will be rejected. And remember that not all expenses are going to be eligible for PPP. So you want to make sure that you go through those checklists and determine that, or your calculation could be possibly decreased. And I've mentioned at the beginning, we've seen a lot of hold code errors or reason code errors. Know that the SBA is doing their due diligence this time around. They're making sure that they're checking background reports. If you know that you have a bankruptcy, that will actually make you ineligible for round 2, unfortunately, and just make sure that that's cleaned up prior to submitting an application. So that's some fast and furious quick tips for round 2. But we understand that every company is a little bit different, and our bankers will help you walk through those nuances with your company. All right. Rob, back to you, or back to Clint on that.
Great. I think what would like, maybe Kay could share a few numbers, at least in terms of what the SBA has released regarding this round.
Great. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Good afternoon. And thank you for giving Zions Bank the opportunity to spend a few moments with you on a very special topic, Payroll Protection Program. These numbers that I'm going to share with you are numbers that are since inception. So it includes both the payroll protection, the PPP 1.0 and the payroll protection 2.0. And so since inception, there has been over 6 million loans that have been originated under this program, and it's just under $600 billion. So the average loan size is just under $100,000. So since January, the PPP 2.0, they have, as Tom mentioned earlier, they have the Congress has allocated $284 billion for this round. And as of January 31st of this year, there's been 891,000 loans, and it's just under $73 billion in originations. And so as you can see there, we have over $200 billion still available in this round. And so there's if customers have the opportunity to apply, it's a great opportunity for them. Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit about the stats in the state of Utah. Through the first month of January, there's been just over 7,054 loans that were originated, and that was about $629 million in originations that would help small businesses in the state of Utah. That's pretty phenomenal to see that that quickly. And I just want to tout just a little bit that Zions Bank is the 5th lender in this round 2, is the 5th lender in the payroll protection program. And so we're so excited to help the citizens and the small businesses in the state of Utah. And with that being said, let me turn that back to you, Rob.
Great, and thanks, Kay. I just would add one thing. You know, in the first round of PPP, Zions Bank Corporation processed just over 47,000 of these loans, and we ranked as the 9th largest provider of PPP loans in the country. And as Kay just mentioned, through the first month of this year, we currently rank 5th in the country in terms of the number, in terms of our providing PPP loans. And so we feel like we know what we're doing. We've got this well figured out, and we're well positioned to help anyone who is interested in applying for another round of PPP funding. So Clint, maybe we'll toss it to you and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, let's see. There is one question that we've received so far. I don't know who wants to take this, but I'll read it, and Rob or Tom, you decide who takes it. The question is, has Zions updated their PPP loan forgiveness to allow loans less than $150,000 to gain forgiveness using the new SBA Zion Simple Loan Forgiveness application?
Shelley, that's probably a question for you.
A forgiveness question. We are concurrently running round 1 forgiveness at the same time as we're doing round 2 intake, and we'll be running that at the same time as round 2 forgiveness. So we'll have 3 different programs going on at the same time. But to answer that question, that will be ready about mid-March. There's actually some technology updates that has to take place in order for applicants to be able to use that on our portal. And as you know, as tech companies, it's easier to write it from the beginning rather than amend some of that software. And so that's the time that it will take for us to get that up and out there. So thank you for being patient, but it'll be coming soon, and we'll send some communication out on that when it's available.
Rob, we don't have any other questions as of now. How would folks who do have questions, who watch this, who aren't watching it live, but will watch it over the next 24, 48 hours, how should they ask questions? Who should they reach out to? Where should we direct them?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Tom, feel free to add to this, but certainly first you can go to zionsbank.com/cares. There are a number of resources there to provide you with information about the program and how to apply. If anyone has specific questions about their application or their situation, certainly feel free to reach out to, if you're an existing customer, reach out to your relationship manager to get answers to those questions, or reach out to your local Zions Bank branch. But Tom, would you direct them anywhere else?
No, Rob, I agree. That's the right place to kind of direct questions to. Find a Zions banker that you know and trust, and let us help you out through the process.
Okay, I spoke too soon. We have 2 more questions for you, and I'll let you decide who you want to answer this. The first question is, are there any advantages to a Zions Bank SBA loan in Utah compared to SBA loans in other states?
Rob, would you like me to take?
Yes, please, Shelley. Thank you. Oh, you're on mute, Shelley. Sorry.
As Kay indicated, we are the 5th ranked PPP 2.0 provider in the nation. And a part of that is because our technology and the backside of the operations has moved very efficiently. We can process your loan faster, probably faster than another local bank or out-of-state bank. And so I encourage you to try Zions. Also, the advantage that we have is we have Scott Anderson, who's the chair of the American Banker Association, who can escalate any SBA questions that we have. So know that you have partnerships on your side to help you get these loans through.
Another question we have here is the pay period the same as round 1, 8 weeks or 24 weeks?
Ryan, do you want to take that?
Sure. It is the same pay. It is the same pay period. You can choose between 8 or 24 weeks to utilize the funds. And then you have 10 months after your period ends to apply for the forgiveness. You do want to make sure you're picking the right period, though, that you're going to, when you're applying for forgiveness, make sure you're applying for either your 8 or 24 week to make sure the calculation is all the same and concurrent with everything, with all the documentation that you provide.
The next question I have for you is another question is, can you speak more about the process for resolving error messages?
Shelley, you want to take that?
Sure. So that's been an area that we've gone back to the SBA to clarify, because it's been one of frustration, to be honest. And it's just been, I'll describe it as a slow drip of clarification. We'll resolve some issues with them, but still have hundreds more of different reason codes. For example, one of those might be an inactive DUNS number. Well, I don't know how many of you keep your DNB current, but I think for most folks, they don't. And so is it fair that the SBA is scrubbing your company against an active or inactive DNB? So it's been a slow process. It's taken, in some instances, a matter of weeks. Again, we are trying to push those through, and we are constantly trying different methods of resubmitting these back to the SBA. So.
We are getting all sorts of questions now. I think people have figured out they can ask questions. So please ask questions, send them in. Here's another question. So do we need to apply for forgiveness on a round one loan first, or should we apply for round two loan first and then later apply for forgiveness for both rounds?
Ryan or Shelley?
Sure, I'll take it. You do not have to apply for forgiveness in order to apply for a round two loan. As Shelley mentioned earlier, we're going to have a short form in probably the next 4 to 6 weeks for the simplified forgiveness portal for round one loans. But you do not need to apply for forgiveness prior to applying. You can get a round two loan, apply for forgiveness for round one, wait the required 8 to 24 weeks for round two, and then apply for forgiveness of your round two loan.
Rob?
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
If I can add to Ryan's comment, if you have a loan that was over $2 million in round one, it's best that you applied for forgiveness, because the SBA is auditing round one loans at the same time as some of these round two loans. So if you haven't done that, I would do that.
The next question is, for second round loans, can you use any 3-month period for the 25% revenue reduction calculation, or do you have to use calendar quarters?
I can answer that. They do need to be calendar quarters and a full calendar year. So counting from January to December. They're pretty traditional that way, the SBA.
Here's an interesting question. And for those watching, I know that I'm supposed to be facing here, but I'm reading it from here. Here's another question. If we got a round one loan from a different lender, can we apply for a round two loan from Zions Bank, or is it better or even required to stay with the same lender?
Great. Ryan, do you want to take that one?
Sure. It is not required to get a round two loan from the same bank or institution that you got your round one loan from. It would be very helpful, though, is if you applied it somewhere else and for round one and you came to Zions for round two, it would be very, very helpful on your part to have your original documentation from the round one loan that will include your PPP loan number, both from the SBA and perhaps the lender has a different PPP loan number that you'll need. Because from our point at Zions, we're not allowed to go and find that round one PPP loan number for you. It's proprietary to the institution you got it from.
Thank you all. I'm not seeing any other questions. If you have any other questions, please follow Rob and Tom's advice and reach out to them as they directed. And again, I want to thank the whole Zions Bank team for coming on and communicating with our community. We'll be in touch. They're usually, after we do these types of things, we're inundated with questions. We'll make sure that they get in contact with you. We have another town hall on the accounting side about PPP and things of that nature at 5 p.m. today. So we're doing 2 of these in a row, which is fascinating. So I want to thank Zions Bank, and in particular, I want to thank Scott Anderson for really spearheading this and making sure we did this today. And for all of you who came on here and shared your expertise and helped the community here, I know Zions Bank to be the best partner in the state of Utah for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and tech companies. Please reach out to them with any help you may want or any help you may need. Follow the directions that they've laid out here, and we will be in touch. And I can't imagine us not doing this again very soon. This is such a fluid situation and so many different things happening on. So thank you, Zions Bank. Thank you, Scott Anderson. Thanks, Rob and Tom and the whole team, Shelly, and everyone for coming on here. It means a lot. And we will have you on again here shortly.
Thanks, Clint.
Thanks so much.